better place for the boys and girls. Created equal by the creator.
Welcome to Let's Start Justice. It's a beautiful afternoon here in Kingston, Jamaica. My name is Michael Jackson, Executive Director of JFJ.
And I'm Jade Williams, Policy Research and Advocacy Manager at JFJ.
So we're going to be discussing a most sober topic today, which is silent struggles confronting bullying, suicide, and mental health challenges among the nation's children. And we're going to be joined by Dr. Wendell Abel, who is a psychiatrist, as well as Mr. Noel Lewin, who is one of our youth advocates,
yes,
and founder and executive director of his own organization, Global Integration Society. All right, so that's the topic for this week. And towards the last 15 minutes of the program, we're going to be discussing our petition, which is calling on our legislators to make body cameras for the Jamaica Constabulary Force mandatory and just put the protocol into law that the JCF currently has. So we're going to be discussing that in the last 15 minutes of the program, walking the listeners through the petition and some of the provisions in the existing protocol and some areas for improvement why we launched this particular petition. That's it for the week. Well, this week, yeah?
Yeah, sure.
Not losing anything. All right. You want me to go into the week that was?
Yes, please
okay.
do.
All right. So, September 19, the country saw Miss Paula Vanessa Llewellyn, our first and longest serving Director of Public Prosecution, making her way into retirement. And on behalf of JFJ, the organization wishes to extend our appreciation to Miss Llewellyn for her years of serving our country in the capacity as the top prosecutor. And as Jamaicans would say, walk good Paula. Yes? You know, one of the things we want to put in context is that Miss Llewellyn has done remarkably good things to the Office of the Director of Public Prosecution. And I want to say, for example, JFJ, we have had challenges with the office in the pace at which matters involving police killings and corruption have been prosecuted over the years. It's against that background, for example, that we had supported in the past the call for a special prosecutor to be put in place for corruption matters. That was a call that was being made by former Prime Minister Bruce Golding, a special prosecutor. And we now see where the Integrity Commission has a director of corruption prosecution. If you remember, the first iteration of the Indicoms Act had provisions for Indicom to charge, arrest, and prosecute. We know that matter went all the way to the Privy Council. But the point that I'm making is that we've had our challenges at JFJ with the office itself. There was a particular matter that then prosecutor Kent Pantry decided not to prosecute that police killing, the Patrick Genius case. And it went all the way to the Privy Council. That matter was brought by JFJ, went all the way to the Privy Council, trying to get the DPP office to reconsider prosecuting rather, but also to give reasons.
Mm-hmm.
No, the Privy Council said that the office is under no legal obligation to give reasons for not prosecuting a matter, but it is certainly good practice to do so. Mm-hmm. One of the reasons for us saying that we appreciate the tenure of Paula Llewellyn, because that matter was during the period of Kent Pantry. Mm-hmm. Paula Llewellyn, if she decides to prosecute or not prosecute, she gives reasons, though it is not legally required to. Mm-hmm. Paula Llewellyn made herself available to the media. You will hear her quite often on radio. Mm-hmm. Saying these are the legal reasons why I made a particular decision. You may not agree, but at least you have an appreciation for the thought process and the application of the law by the office. Her work in public education, explaining to you, what you would need from a juror, the importance of jury duty, and so on, is remarkable. And on behalf of JFJ, I want to say thanks to Ms. Llewellyn for serving the country. The office, nor its former occupant, was above scrutiny, and we have made some of our concerns known to the public. However, we must take note of the legacy of people when they do good work, so that legacy, though there were areas for criticism, it is not marred by it. So Paula Llewellyn, thank you so much on behalf of JFJ. Transparency of an office is important, right?
Yes, indeed. Absolutely.
Yeah. Just another minute, Jade and listeners, while we say our thanks to former DPP for her service to the country, I think it is concerning that we now have an acting DPP, though qualified, because we all knew that September 19 was coming. And I think it's important for us to get an update as to where we are with appointing the new DPP in a permanent manner. I think we've been getting our updates from the media, but if it is that we knew that September 19 was coming, I can't imagine the justification for what we now have. And on the matter of the DPP office, I also share a concern with the fact that we still do not have an executive director over by the Integrity Commission, and that the Director of Corruption Prosecution is acting, because we just checked, Jade, and I was advised that the terms of reference that advertised the two positions, Executive Director and Director of Corruption Prosecution, it closed for the Executive Director on May 9.
Yes.
That's 4.5 months ago. The application process closed based on that terms of reference. And for the Director of Corruption Prosecution, that closed March 28. Today is now September 29. I think the country needs answers, because we cannot have these critical offices overseeing critical matters and we do not have permanent appointments. I think that is untenable, and I think the responsible agencies owe the country an update as to where we are with the permanent appointment of a DPP, as well as the Integrity Commission indicating where they are with an executive director and what is happening with the Director of Corruption Prosecution, because we note that there is someone acting in that post. But what about the permanent appointment? I think transparency and accountability to the people is important. And dare I say, this is what the Oversight Committee of Parliament, and I know that a new Parliament was just reconvened following the general election, but I think the Integrity Commission, being a commission of Parliament, the Parliament ought to ask for answers to those questions. These are critical operational matters that we need answers to. Yeah.
All right. Thank you for that, Mikhail. We do have our guests on for our major topic, which is confronting bullying, suicide, and mental health challenges among children. We have been seeing this issue come into sharp focus with recent reports of student suicides, some linked to persistent harassment at school or bullying. We've seen where the Ministry of Education has been calling for national action, and we've also seen the National Teachers Association calling for a targeted approach to address bullying. So this week we're going to be looking at the issue: what is bullying? How does it affect the mental health of children, adolescents, and what can we do to improve that situation? So joining us, we have Dr. Wendell Abel, and who is a psychiatrist practicing here in Jamaica, and Mr. Noel Lewin, who is a youth advocate as well as the founder and executive director of Global Integration Society. Thank you both for joining us.
Thank you very much for having me.
Thank you.
Thank you. I think I'll start with you, Dr. Abel. when we're talking about bullying, what kind of behaviors are we looking at?
Well, bullying involves, it can be, well, you know what, when we grow up, we usually call it teasing, yes?
Mm-hmm.
And when you're teasing somebody, that is how we used to see bullying. And for many persons, it was really considered a part of play and normal, and we would make light of it. But we have come to realize how serious this is. Bullying can be any sort of aggressive act that is directed towards another person, yes, and to another child. So it could be verbal, calling them names, blacker, bigger, big for it, In fact, what I'm here highlighting is body shaming, which is act. So it's name calling and also body shaming, which we do a lot in Jamaica, the goated boy, things like that, and we make light of it, yes? It can also be physical, where you push and hit and slap somebody, yes? So acts like those, and what is interesting is that, and there's also nowadays what they refer to as cyberbullying.
Yes.
You talk to young people now, and they'll tell you a lot of bullying actually takes place online. Doesn't have to be direct face to face, where persons are called name and they're threatened and teased and all sorts of things. Yes, and this we know has, well, whether it's face to face bullying or cyberbullying, can lead to serious psychological problem. Depression, suicidal behavior, and even some persons may get severely mentally ill and have, developed psychotic break because of how it may affect individuals, leading them to be depressed and sad. They may actually turn to using drugs as a way to self-medicate their depression and sadness and so on. And what I wanted to say quickly is that it's actually very common in Jamaica. I think recent study done like a year or two ago will show that 4 out of every 10 child in school actually reported that they have been bullied, whether in school or in their community or at home. So it's a fairly common exposure.
Yes.
And,
Dr. Abel, I'm
really
going to ask you to hold that point for me, please. We're going to take a break, and when we come back, we'll pick up with both you and Noel.
Do it for your best life. Right. Go check your HIV status. Right. So keep your life trending, no pretending. Me I tell yourself it, do it for you, do it for you. Every time you are link with a condom, coulda Ozzy, coulda wife, coulda be a random. Condom connect and protect your profile. Be your own fan. Do it for your best life. Right. Do it for your best life. Right. Don't put yourself at risk. Condom connect every time. Do it for your best life. Right.
Welcome back to Let's Talk Justice. We're discussing the issue of bullying, suicide, mental health challenges among children. Before the break, I should have given you the trivia question for today. So quickly, the trivia question for today is... I'm going to be helped by the producer now. Yes. In which year did Jamaica ratify the Convention on the Rights of the Child? So in which year did Jamaica ratify the Convention on the Rights of the Child? You can respond in the YouTube chat, on Instagram at JA for Justice, or in WhatsApp at 2397583. Now, before the break, Dr. Abel, you were just giving us a bit of perspective about the prevalence of bullying in Jamaica. If you could finish up that point for me, please.
I was saying, the studies have shown that up to 4 out of 10 children in this country report that they have been bullied in schools. Yes, so it's fairly common. Yes.
Mm-hmm.
And I touched on the different types of bullying, whether it's verbal, physical, like provoking other children and attacking them physically, grabbing them and pulling them by the hair, taking away their personal belongings and damaging them. Those are some acts of bullying. And then we mentioned cyberbullying,
right?
And so on, which occurs on the internet and so. And the young people have the various terms for it. You out somebody, or you embarrass them online, or you flame them by saying bad things and spreading rumors and lies about them and so on. Yes?
Mm-hmm.
So, and what I said earlier is that these acts, especially if they occur over a long period of time and they're repetitive, they keep repeating over and over, can create a lot of psychological problem for young people. They can get very anxious, they can get depressed. A lot of persons, when they're being bullied, they break down in tears, and sometimes they report it to teacher or parents, and the parents will tell them that then a little teasing that you have to man up or big up yourself, especially boys,
Mm-hmm.
And
I want to take a quick pause there, Dr. Abel, and bring in Noel, because you're speaking to how the child might respond, and I wanted to know, Noel, from your perspective, what are some of the barriers that young people face when trying to address these issues, when they're experiencing bullying or any other kind of challenge like that?
Okay, thank you very much. Well, a lot of young people face limited access to resources in terms of getting help, because if we're talking about in the schools, you have the counselor that you can go to and talk to, but in most cases, nothing is being done to address this issue. You report that you're being bullied by another student, and sometimes they don't really solve the problem. So you have lack of access to quality resources in terms of these persons actually doing something to assist. And in generally, as Dr. Abel mentioned, for men, if somebody a bully you, you report it to whether your parents or your friends or anything like that, you will be ridiculed. You will be encouraged to stand up for yourself and be violent. Mm-hmm. So again, how we go about addressing the issue is also a concern. And lastly, I would say our cultural issue, like we have a culture in Jamaica, and this ties back into the same violence where we don't know how to deal with these issues in a amicable way. Like it's always, just violence. So I would say access to quality resources, how we go about it, and also, our cultural makeup as it relates to how to address issues.
I'm sure you have some ideas for solutions, but before we get there, I remember Dr. Abel mentioning the issue of cyberbullying and how that has kind of changed the landscape as to what young people are responding to. I don't know, based on your experience in doing advocacy in this work, what has cyberbullying done to affect this situation?
I mean, it has worsened the situation, because now the different social media platforms are accessible by young people and the elderly alike. So everybody are exposed to these harmful, words. As was mentioned, it's a case where you use digital media to hurt somebody's feelings, to degrade them, to break their self-esteem. And when we have our young people using these social media platforms, they are more susceptible to being, hurt by their friends and family. So it has worsened the situation now. Because, say for example, if we didn't have access to technology or the media, you're just in your community, and if somebody says something to you, then that's just the community. But when you're exposed to the world, because everybody is on social media and you're open to criticism on a wider scale, so it has worsened the situation by far.
Yeah, thanks for that, Noel. I wanted to pick back up with you, Dr. Abel, because you spoke to some of the effects that come from the bullying, the depression, the suicidal ideation. How easy is it for parents, peers to detect those kinds of things? What should we be looking for to know when to respond?
Well, I remember some time ago I was at a particular church talking to young children and talking to them about bullying. And I was surprised, probably I would think about 6 out of 10 of them admitted to actually being bullied. Some very young ones, And the things that they told me other children were saying to them was very painful. I remember one girl told me that friend in her class tell her she can't be a pilot because she's too fat. And this was at a young age, probably at about 7. Can you imagine somebody telling you that and you live with that? So it can destroy their self-esteem and their sense of self, especially if you're body shaming them and name calling. It also makes children feel unsafe. And some of them are actually threatened and terrified, right? And they are unsafe, yes, and feel unsafe. So there's this lack of sense of safety. And as a result of all of this, it can lead to emotional distress, and psychological pain. It can affect if you're being constantly bullied and you're distressed, it can affect your performance in school, yes? Mm-hmm. And then there are longer term effects of being bullied, having the experience of being bullied, as I said, like long-term depression, anxiety, and so on. And we've seen cases, not here in Jamaica, but elsewhere, where children have been bullied and actually have, unfortunately, ended their lives. Yes, but it's that these are traumatic experiences that occur in childhood, and they can have long-term effect on children. A lot of psychological problems.
You said something, Dr. Abel, and I wanted to expound on it, because I think our cultural norms perhaps need a little bit of adjustment in how we socialize our children and the words that they hurl at their colleagues. So I'm not sure if you could walk us through something, because you made mention that it could just, some people said it's just a little name calling. You need to toughen up. And I've heard sentiments that the current generation, them too soft, them too Americanized, touchy-feely. How do you respond to sentiments such as those? And what would be your words to parents in how we can do better at ensuring that our children are sensitive to the needs of others?
We live in a society where sometimes we're very harsh to each other and very hard on each other, and especially to children. They experience high levels of physical abuse at home under the guise that it's discipline, and the verbal abuse, the name calling and the put down and things that are said to them to make them feel small, and this is carried over in the community. Many children in communities have nicknames, and a lot of the nicknames are linked to something about them, if some body parts or some behavior, and people call them names. For example, if you're too dark, they call you 5 minutes after midnight and things like that, and tar baby and blacker, and bigger and bigger. That's as I was saying before, the name calling, which in our society we kind of normalize. But these things can can destroy people's sense of self and their self-esteem, and when it's happening continuously every day, especially at home, in the classroom, in the community, it really is an act of bullying, and we don't really see it as such. You know, in fact, and so get back to your point that we need to really create for ourselves a gentler society. This society too rough and tough for our children, right? And it starts within the home. That children need to be, they need to be safe, they need to feel secure, they need to exist in a stable environment, and they need to get a lot of nurturing, right? Safe, we have to make sure the home environment is safe for them. They're not being physically abused, they're not getting up every day seeing their parents fighting and quarreling. The community needs to be a safe place. I mean, unfortunately, 8 out of every 10 child in this country report that they're exposed to either violence in the home or in the community, right? So we need to create a home and a society that is safe. We need to create stability in their lives, meaning that we're not supposed to be mother migrate and go abroad. And I'm not knocking mothers or fathers who have to migrate. But when they migrate and you send them to grandmother, and grandmother can't deal with them, you send them to their godmother, and then they send to be with a foster person, and they're moved all over the place. That's not stable for them. Children to form a good sense of self and identity, they need to be in a stable environment, and and you know, as a psychiatrist, you see it every day that children who don't grow up with this sort of stability develop a lot of mental health issues later in life. They need to be secure in their home environment, and they need to be nurtured. Yes? In fact, you think about a tree. You see, when a farmer plants a tree out there, sometimes he ties the tree onto a stick and stake it to give it stability, and he will put a mesh wire or something around it to protect it so that goat don't eat down the tree. And he's going to water that tree on a daily basis, nurture it so that it will strive and thrive. And we need to do the same thing to our children so that they grow up healthy. And when they grow up healthy, they will strive and they'll thrive. And they'll
Let's pause that for a second, Dr. Abel. We have to take the break, and then we pick up with, walking through cyberbullying and signs that parents should look out for.
At the Jamaica Customs Agency, we care for our employees, customers, stakeholders, citizens, and our country. Customs cares. The temperature by the Jamaica Customs Agency is
31 degrees Celsius here in Kingston, as well as out west in Montego Bay.
Are you ready to turn your sales and marketing skills into high earnings? Nationwide 90FM is searching for business development executives to build lasting client relationships. If you have experience across all stages of the sales cycle and possess strong communication, negotiation, and time management skills with a proven sales track record, this opportunity is perfect for you. Join our team and work with the top corporate brands, media agencies, and of course, our on-air personalities. Enjoy networking opportunities, professional growth, and competitive commissions. Ready to take the next step? Send your resume to hr@nationwidenewsnetwork.com today.
Welcome back to Let's Start Justice. We've been discussing silent struggles confronting bullying, suicide, and mental health challenges among children. We're joined by Dr. Wendell Abel and Mr. Noel Lewin. Noel has just joined us in studio. Noel, I wanted to ask, Dr. Abel was speaking just now to the need for a change in our cultural and societal mindset when it comes to the treatment of children. From your perspective, what more can young people themselves, peer support networks, what kind of youth-led initiatives do we need to see to improve this situation when it comes to bullying and mental health for young people?
Okay. Well, firstly, I would say there's definitely a social and cultural issue as it relates to this topic in Jamaica, because as was mentioned earlier, we have the mindset that, you know, we have to be rough and tough, and especially for males. If somebody says something to you, you're not supposed to get to you, basically. You know, you're supposed to just brush that off. But as Dr. Abel mentioned, some of those harmful words with the intent to hurt, you know, others' feelings, they actually hurt the feelings. So it can be simple, just, you know, you calling me blacker or tall man or whatever the case is. Deep down inside, I don't like that, but, you know, you don't know. And sometimes, even when you say it at a time, them start to call it the names for true. Mm-hmm. And, you know, as was mentioned, we don't really know, say, people really hurt by certain words. So we have to sensitize our citizens and let them know that, guess what? Mm-hmm. Even though you don't see this as an issue, it really affects a great number of people. And you have to be very careful of, you know, how you describe people and the words that you use to them. So as an advocacy group, we need to ensure that we do a lot in terms of, again, informing persons that this is not okay, that it leads to many issues such as, you know, depression, stress, and even suicide in some cases, because some people, they take it really hard. They don't have, you know, any outlet to express themselves and express the hurt and pain that they're going through. And because, again, we have some parents, we have some friends and families who they don't understand how sensitive this matter is, they turn a blind eye. So there is little to no outlet for these persons affected to access.
Mm-hmm. You know, I'm seeing some comments in the chat. One of our listeners, a regular listener, is speaking to their experience as a child, saying, you know, they were bullied as a child from as early as basic school because they were coming from the country and were extremely shy. So students took that as an opportunity to pick on them, and that it was a continuous issue into primary school. And it wasn't until they started to stand up to those students that the bullying stopped. And she went on to say that she went to a prominent high school, and another friend of theirs was being bullied for living in a ghetto area, and they used slurs when speaking to her, and it was that, you know, that group stood by her why the bullying ended up stopping. So, you know, with that kind of experience, if you are a young person going through bullying now, what's your advice to them, Noel, to try and get past it? And then I'll ask the same question to Dr. Abel, but Noel first.
Well, firstly, I apologize for that experience. And I have faced a similar situation in the past, because I'm from Clarendon originally. And when I first entered the youth space and you know, participating in advocacy, a lot of people, when them ask you where you come from, you say Clarendon, they say, oh, you know, country. And it sounds simple and all of that, but when you look at the intent behind it, because again, bully, based on the definition, is, you know, the intent to hurt someone's feelings. So some of them, they say, you know, oh, country, because they want you to feel less than a person. They want you to feel inferior, because there's a notion that, you know, when you come from Kingston, when you attend a Kingston school, you're, you know, above everybody else. Some people have that opinion. But I would say, as it relates to how to deal with it, you have to be, you know, confident in yourself. First of all, you have to be proud of where you come from, and know that the intention, you know, of you, whether going to school or being in certain spaces, is greater than, you know, your past or your situations. Because, again, I'm from, I would say, a vulnerable community, and I didn't make that define me, because I know that where I come from, you know, my situation does not dictate, you know, where I will be in the future. So I would say you have to be proud of that you know, country, or, you know, the ghetto, and know that even though right now is it look like a bad situation, it doesn't define where we're going in the future.
Thank you for that, Noel. Dr. Abel, the same question to you. If someone is experiencing these issues now, or the effects of bullying, what is your advice to them as to how to respond?
Well, firstly, for parents, since we're talking about children to a great extent, and in regards to the cyberbullying, that parents should monitor their children online, and whether it's online or offline, to on a daily basis ask them how are they doing, how are they feeling, especially if you see a child becoming sad, withdrawn, and so on. And if they should share with you that they're being bullied or anything like that, don't be judgmental or harsh and respond to them. Then why you going so? You need to toughen up and you can't behave like sissy. Things like that. We're being harsh and we're being judgmental. It's important that we listen to our children and let them feel that they're heard and they're believed. That's very important. And also to help them to work through their feelings, yes? And process their feelings. Very important. So, I think one of the most important things is just having a good, healthy relationship with your child. That is important. In fact, that seems to be one of the most protective things in a child's life, having a parent or an adult in their life who is trusting, somebody they can trust and they can sit with and talk, and somebody who will listen to them. And of course, if a child is being bullied, it's important that we deal with it in an appropriate way. You may want to go to school and report it to the guidance counselor, to the class teacher. But they go quarrel and make fuss and quarrel and embarrass the child and make things worse for the child. Right? Just deal with it in a respectful way, because sometimes the other children who may be bullying another child, right? They themselves may have emotional problems and may be going through a lot at home too. Yes, they may be themselves traumatized. So it's important as parents that we deal with these things in an adult-like way, in a respectful way, and protect our children. Yes.
You said something, Dr. Abel, and before I ask you the question, I just want to emphasize what you said and reiterate it, that it's important that parents don't take it upon themselves to go to the schools to attack a teacher and to attack another parent and attack a child. Because I think sometimes, as parents, when we go in that protective mode, we may lose our minds just for a few minutes, but it's important that we... the intention, while I appreciate and agree with what Dr. Abel said, that it's, want to further embarrass the child, I just want to urge parents not to cause harm. Not to cause harm.
Yes.
Yes, because that's how some react in some instances.
And I tell you this another important point, a lot of times when you see parents act out of line and behave aggressive and violent at school, sometimes too, and I'm not excusing the behavior, I'm not condoning it, but a lot of times these parents are frustrated and irritable and depressed. And sometimes it has to do with how the teachers or the guidance counselor deal with these parents. If you have a parent who has come to school and they seem upset and so on, invite them into a room. Yes, maybe the principal's office or the guidance counselor room. Sit them down and say something like this: I can see you're upset or angry. Do you want to tell me what's happening to you? Yes, but sometimes what we do is embarrass the parents too, and we don't treat them like human and treat them with respect, and then their behavior get out of control. I tell you this as a psychiatrist. I know that when people are angry and out of control around me, what I have to do is just behave calm and quiet and offer them a chair or somewhere, something to sit on, and sometimes even ask them, do you want a glass of water or something? I can see you're upset and angry, and I'm sure there are reasons you're feeling that way. Do you want to share with me? And the moment you do that, people kind of calm down and they begin to open up and tell you what is happening. So it also has to do with how we deal with each other. And for those who are listening to us who deal with adults in distress and children in distress, let us be gentle in dealing with these situations.
Thank you, Dr. Abel. Noel, your last word for our listeners.
Well, my last words is a word of encouragement to anyone facing bullying, that you're not alone, and because somebody is bullying you,
Yes.
that doesn't mean that you're less than a person. It doesn't mean that you don't have any value. Sometimes, as was mentioned by Dr. Abel, it's a reflection of the bully's own, experience.
Mm.
So it's very important for you to speak up and seek the help you need, whether it is to speak to your parents, if you're comfortable, or speak to a guidance counselor if it's a case where you're at school. And older persons experience bullying as well.
Mm-hmm.
And whether it is cyberbullying or it's somebody in your space, you have to stand up for yourself in a way that doesn't exacerbate the situation. So be intelligent about it, whether you talk to them and let them know that this is affecting you, or you try your best to remove yourselves from the space as well. That could help. So
Thank you so much, Noel, and thanks again, Dr. Abel. Thank you both for joining us for this conversation. We appreciate you taking the time.
It's a pleasure. Have a great afternoon, sure.
Thank you so much. Before we segue into the next topic, just want to say that if a child is experiencing bullying, having suicidal thoughts, please call 211, or you can call 119 of the JCF, or you can also call the Ministry of Health Suicide Prevention Helpline at 888 New Life. That's 888 New NEW Life. You look for the relevant numbers on your phone to spell it out, and you make those calls. Parents, please pay keen attention to look for those signs. If your child is being withdrawn, you see personality changes, you look out for whether there are marks on the child's hand and so on, because some children do cutting of the body. Mm-hmm. Guidance counselors, I know that you're overworked. Some of you are spread across different schools, but as best as possible, I think the schools can also be a little bit more responsive when children indicate that they are the victim of bullying. And parents, please do more to raise children who are sensitive and do not participate in the name calling and so on. And also, children, with your parents, develop different techniques to help with having a strong sense of self. Those affirmation techniques where when you look in the mirror, you see such a beautiful person. So if anybody say you're ugly, you say, we are talked to. Look how me cute, look how me look nice, right? So self-affirmation is important as we build a strong sense of who we are, right? My parting words to the topic.
Thank you, Mikhail. All right, so I know
we're not taking a full break.
No, we're
going
not.
to segue into.
Yes, we're going to discuss now the matter of body-worn cameras. It has become a topic on the forefront once more, as we saw an incident. I think it was week before last.
Jamar Farkinson. 22-year-old.
Yes. Fatally shot, and the circumstances in which that took place are questionable. Again, the challenge that JFJ has had is that we have these planned operations, we have these tactical operations, we have no body cameras, even though we have procured, based on public statements and data from the JCF, body cameras already.
Well, before we get into that, I want us to separate the topic as well, because we spoke publicly about Jamar's particular case. And then as an organization, I want to make it very clear to the public that we have to exercise caution when we speak on matters, and therefore we have to be guided by information. So we first saw that video. It was on Jamaica Observer, I believe it was. And you saw Jamar putting up his hand, seemingly compliant with the police. And we could not speak at that time, though it raised an eyebrow because the footage was not time-stamped. You had no idea about the series of events. We did not hear from the parents or the family members, rather, at that time. And when you fast forward to a couple of days after to released footage from CVM TV, I believe it was that I saw it on personally, then there were several questions that we had. For example, the footage suggested that the police interfered with the camera. Yes. And I think that's reason enough to ask a certain question, especially given that you saw the footage and then CVM did a series of time, though the footage itself was not time-stamped. So you had reasonable questions from what you saw in the media, which is why JFJ spoke and said, a body cam would have aided in this particular instance. So, it's on behalf of the family, I think we need questions to be answered in short order. We appreciate that Indicom is executing its investigation, and we can preempt certain aspects of that, but we hope it will be concluded as soon as possible. So we look forward to that, but we support the family in the questions that they raised, because we also indicated to the public the questions that we also had because of, again, the police interfering with the camera that was in the house. Yes. And to JFJ's perspective, it was quite reminiscent of Romario Sterling that was in March of 2024, where the police had one account of the incident, the family had another account, and then CCTV footage was released by the family, which showed a man who purported to be Romario kneeling down, hands behind the head, seemingly compliant, and then what sounded like a gunshot was heard. And we're very concerned when you have incidents like that. Now, I listened to an interview this morning, Jade listeners, on Nationwide this morning with the police commissioner, Dr. Kevin Blake, and a statement that was released by the JCF over the weekend indicating that they will not be dictated to from any group, including Jamaicans for Justice, and though Nationwide didn't report this morning that Indicom was also named in that statement, which was released over the weekend. I won't respond to aspects of the statement, because one of the things we don't do here, we don't get into war of words with another institution. But let me say this. For those who have taken the time to read JFJ's petition that we launched Friday afternoon, you would realize that the organization took due care in putting out the facts that we have regarding the procurement of the body cams and how they're being utilized. If you realize in JFJ's petition, it very clearly says, further to a meeting had with the police high command in May of this year, it was indicated to us that there are 750 body cameras. 674 of them are currently being used in among beat patrol officers and by P-STEP officers. So in other words, the everyday interaction, and I hear the commissioner saying when you go marketplace downtown and so on, traffic police, you see it. That's what we said in our statement. We repeated the exact information that the High Command gave to us. We also indicated in our petition that the police had indicated to us that 1,000 body cameras are near procurement and another 3,000 would be procured in another 3 fiscal years. Yes. There's nothing else that JFJ said that runs counter to what the JCF has put out. Nothing. Yes. While we were in the meeting, we asked the commissioner, it was a very cordial meeting, let me say this, and we put it to the commissioner whether we could get a commitment that a portion of the body cameras that are near completion, that's the 1,000 coming, whether a portion of that could be allocated to planned operations. And we were advised that planned operations, they may have several, and therefore the number may very well exceed the amount of body cameras. And we respect that. However, we still believe that a portion should be allocated to the planned operations.
Yes.
In fact, we did not get a commitment from the High Command, and I stand corrected, Jade, you were in the meeting.
No, we did not.
We did not get a commitment that a portion of those body cameras will be allotted to planned operations. And we are reiterating our call for that to happen. That's not a dictate. We are making a public appeal to the JCF for a portion of the body cameras being procured to be deployed to planned operations. Further, the JCF has a standard operating protocol. It was first done in 2017 and remarkably improved in 2021. For example, it makes mention of data privacy in keeping with the Data Protection Act, which was passed in 2020. So there are some areas that were improved, listeners. One of the things, though, when you read the protocol, there's still some glaring gaps. Firstly, that protocol does not indicate to you how body cameras will be so utilized in the force. When you look at protocols in other jurisdictions, it will actually spell out to you that body cameras will be activated in instances where there is the potential for use of force deaths, the potential for use of force physical harm to a civilian, when you're executing a search warrant, when you're executing an arrest warrant. Some protocols in other jurisdictions spells it out as clear as day, as I just articulated it. And when you read our petition, you will see where we're making a call for the law to spell it out. Now, when you look at laws that mandate body cameras or policies, because a complex issue, I want to make it very clear, it's a complex issue. There's no one size fits all, whether you have a law or a policy. Some jurisdictions have a bit of both, or either or, right? Now, when you look at the protocol for the JCF, there's some incongruences in the protocol, wherein it does not specifically articulate to an officer how the activation and the deactivation of the body cameras are to be done. And we're asking for that to be clarified in law. Now, I want to make it clear that Jamaica, under the Zones of Special Operations related legislation, Law Reform Act, something like that.
The Law Reform Zones of Special Operations Act.
Under a particular section, it indicates that body cameras shall be used.
Yes.
Shall. But then it gives you some discretion in terms of how it will be applied, when it will be activated. That's all we're asking for, to be legislated, so that it is mandated in law for it to be used. But the police would have the discretion to say, as obtained in other jurisdictions, I am not going to be activating the body camera. That's the police know, because it may put a particular witness in harm's way, because the kind of operation I'm undertaking, it may put the operation and the officer at risk. So we're saying mandate it in law, but you have those exemptions clearly outlined. That's all JFJ is asking for. So again, we're not going to be getting into a war of words, because one, we welcome the news that the body cameras are near completion. I heard the police commissioner making a conservative estimate that it's going to be another 1 month. Excellent news. But again, we're reiterating our appeal for a portion of those to be going to planned operations. But our petition is more geared towards the legislator. That's Parliament who makes laws for in the medium term for a legislation to be done. And it's very important, Jade and listeners, that I quickly put in perspective that this legislation is important, because whereas other jurisdictions like United Kingdom, they don't have one law that says body cameras. They have several pieces of laws or legislation rather that will tell you how surveillance tools are to be utilized. Why is that important? It is important because guess what? When you have Jamaica Eye, when you have body cameras and so on, it also has implications for privacy rights. It has implications for indicating to us, the citizens, that guess what? Are we going to be permitting body cameras to be procured that may have facial recognition?
Right.
What does that mean for you? So we're saying at JFJ, let's start the tone, the conversation rather, for a law to deal with these matters. So this is beyond the mandating of the police now. We're saying that we need a legislative framework to deal with it. So, listeners, I urge you, join JFJ in that call to Parliament, to our Prime Minister, who's the Minister of Defense, to our Minister of National Security and Peace. Go on our platform and you will see that link. If you're not seeing it, or you can't click it because, you're not so technologically savvy like Jade, you can call the office and we will send that petition link to you. Join us in that call. It is not an unreasonable call. We're not trying to demotivate the police. And to a question that Mr. George Davis asked this morning, no, we're not making the call because we want to say that it's our advocacy lead to anything. We don't operate like that at JFJ, right? That we're not motivated by those things. So I want to also answer that question pointedly. JFJ, we have been doing our advocacy on body camera from the first time a pilot project was done in Jamaica in 2012.
Yes.
So we're quite cognizant of the facts. We do not misrepresent any information. And if you read our petition, it says all of that. And we thank the police for their tireless work in serving and protecting Jamaica. But please sign the petition. And by the way, the OPM site, it was not working last week.
Yes.
It just wasn't working, so the petition could not be up on the OPM site. So we have another platform. So please go on the JFJ site and you will see that petition link. All right.
All right. Thank you so much for that, Mikkel. I think it's important. I hope that the listeners were paying keen attention. Mikkel didn't exactly say, but if you go on our social media platforms at JA4Justice on both X and Instagram, the link is the first link in our link tree. So you'll see the link tree link in our bio, and when you click on that, the link is the first one there, so you can sign the petition through that. I saw some people leaving comments on the post itself. For those who left the comment but did not actually click the link, please go to our bio and click the link and sign. It's important, right? Just to say, our trivia winner for today came from our Instagram, The Humble One. We will send you a DM with your prize. The answer for the question was 1991, and the question was, which year was the Convention of the Rights of the Child ratified by Jamaica? So that's 1991. Thanks again for joining us on Let's Talk Justice today. My name is Jade Williams.
And my name is Mikkel Jackson. Thank you so much. Have a beautiful week.
Jamaicans by justice, the people's champion. Justice for all, justice under the law, justice Jamaica demand, right to life, right to liberty. Out of many we are one in a Jamaica, make it a better place for the boys and girls, created equal by the creator, for equal rights and opportunities, no to unlawful detention and police brutalization, class, gender, race or religion. We not tolerate discrimination.
To join the fight against injustice, contact us at 755-4524 or JamaicансForJustice.org.
The people's champion.
New NHT loans now in effect, up to 9 million for individuals and as high as 23 million for co-applicants, making home ownership more accessible for Jamaicans. We are building Jamaica.
The time by the Office of the Prime Minister is
2:00.
Now